Welcome to the Leverett Village Co-op Forest Garden, and I'm Jono. I live nearby and have been helping to develop this for a number of years, maybe since 2008. This is the surrounding landscape of the co-op, and in the back where we are now, there's enough room for a play space and room for people to play frisbee or soccer and hang out or show movies and whatever. But then around the edges in that zone, we've planted a lot of food plants. And the idea with the edible forest garden is to increase the diversity of food in our landscapes around our homes and community spaces, and using a real diversity of food plants. So not just vegetables, which are great, but also what kind of herbs can we grow, what kind of berries, what kind of fruit, what kind of nuts, and then put them together in a way that is like a forest, the way forests grow lots of different things and they need very little maintenance. A lot of the growth of the edible forest garden has been with volunteer groups over the years. We've had classes, permaculture classes. We've had community groups come and help do projects, planting, mulching, donating their time and money and plants to help make the garden happen here. And so by having this garden here, we're creating this space that both is educational, people can see what it looks like, then they can also get involved, and kids and young adults and people of different ages can come and see what does an edible landscape look like, what do these different plants look like, and what kind of care do they need. And so it's really kind of embodies the values of the co-op, and I think has been really wonderful. These came into production pretty quick. They're wonderful trees. They're just getting ripe and not perfectly ripe. They're really delicious. These are Asian pears, or sometimes called apple pears, because they're crunchy and juicy, a little bit more like an apple. Really good. Oh my gosh, so good. This is an Asian pear, but a different variety. So you've got the the yellow, and then there's the russet. So different varieties of Asian pears these are a little bit more kind of nutty, earthy tasting, have a stronger flavor, whereas these are just super sweet. So we planted these two Asian pear trees as a real thank you to Dan Bennett, Julie Shively, some of the founders of the co-op. And for a number of years we were harvesting here, and we brought some up to Dan where he lives close by. It's kind of like a thank you for all the efforts that he put in establishing the co-op. These were planted about, they were like 12 years old, and then the nut tree was planted just about 2 years ago, but they grow quite fast, so it's getting going pretty well. The prospect that we could grow food here and it could help feed the community, and then some of the surplus from the garden here can go into the co-op and people can actually purchase. So in fact, some of these Asian pears will be for sale in the co-op in the coming week or two. So these are the Pawpaws. There's some little ones. They're pretty small, but it's a beautiful tropical family tree, sometimes called the Michigan banana. They have really a delicious flavor. The fruit does. It's the largest native fruit here in North America. And it grows as this beautiful tree with these big luscious leaves. And then as you can see, they also sucker. So they're spreading, and it creates what's sometimes referred in the song called the Pawpaw Patch, way on down yonder in the Pawpaw Patch. So this area where the Pawpaw Patch is, the pawpaws are spreading, but it's also filled with lots of other different plants. Like here's a gooseberry. It's a little bit in its fall, losing its leaves, but it put out lots and lots of fruit this year, gooseberries, and they create a small kind of quarter size red or green type of fruit that's really delicious. There and here, this is a clove currant that creates a almost, it's a cross between a currant and a gooseberry somewhat, and it's got a fruit that's more like grapes. Tastes a little grape-like and really delicious. Here we have a pretty complex mix of June berries, there's black currants. These two shrubs over here are beach plums, which were bearing really abundantly, and then the birds really got excited, and we usually get quite a bit more fruit. But here's some beach plums. Those are a little bit smaller, but the beach plums do really well. They're a coastal plant, but they do really well in this kind of sandy soil, even when we have a drought year like this. And so they've been bearing profusely. And so we have some ground covers, some comfrey, some ferns. It's a spreading Juneberry, and then in the back over there is one of our hazelnuts, one of the larger hazelnut shrubs. Right here, this big shrub. I can even see a bird's nest up in the corner over there. So the birds are also living in here. There's space here for wildlife. There's room for all the different creatures. There's a lot of abundance here, just in a very small space. And then coming around this way, there's a couple blueberries that are doing okay. It's getting a little bit shady in here. They probably like a little bit more sun and maybe a little bit more acidic soil. And then coming around this edge here is some currants, mountain mint. This is a really beautiful mint that's still in flower in the fall. It has this incredible strong mint fragrance to it, and we have it here as both a pollinator plant because it attracts amazing pollinators, and also it's a great tea plant. And it's at the base of one of the bird houses. So we have a series of bird houses, and we get either sometimes some swallows and also sometimes some sparrows, and kind of a mix. So we're trying to create room for lots of other animals here. So these are hybrid hazelnuts. These are shrubs. So here, this one's about 8 or 9 feet tall, multi-stemmed. They're crosses of the European hazelnut with some American in there. And here's some fruit. We had mostly have harvested the nuts for this year. What you can see there, this is the husk with 3 different nuts inside there. And we harvest these, we let them dry, they come out of the husks, and then we run the nuts through a cracking machine that spins around, drops them through, and breaks them out of the shell. Hazelnuts have both protein and oil, thus you get a lot of these hazelnut oil products, and we often combine them. Hazelnuts as protein and oil, and chestnuts are more of a carbohydrate. So chestnuts and hazelnuts are really good in combination together. And then over here, these are 2 Korean nut pines. They're a special pine that makes cones, have edible kernels to them. They'll start to become some screening. They get to be maybe 20 feet tall. They're very slow to establish, and are just getting going now. But they'll be beautiful. Small pine trees, hazelnut of one of the larger shrubs, and then next to that is a American persimmon, and along this north side is mostly persimmon. American persimmons are smaller than the Asian persimmons, maybe up to golf ball size, and they once they harvest late, really mid-autumn, really you want to let them ripen well, so they're not so astringent, and then they get really deliciously sweet, and they make great puddings and for smoothies and pies and all sorts of things. They can be really delicious. Here's the American persimmon. You can see they're still very green. They'll start to turn reddish and yellow as they ripen over the coming weeks, especially with the cold weather. They'll hang on even after the leaves have dropped, and you can eat them even when there's snow on the ground. And this is an amazing wildlife plant through much of the eastern seaboard, particularly further south. But we don't have them growing wild up here, but they do well. They grow really well. This is a special variety that I got from a nursery nearby, and it's now, this is about year 4. I got it at about 6 feet tall, a pretty large bush, and it's really just taken off. And this will be our first big harvest this year. This is the first one I planted, and the story here is I watched it for many years as it would it would flower, and then it never set fruit. And I was going mad, going, why isn't it setting fruit? And it was because they were all male flowers. And so what I needed to do was I planted the female over there, and then around here we planted this other one. And so you can see on this one over here as well, it's set a lot of fruit. And a nitrogen fixing shrub, the Siberian pea shrub, next to it. And this is meant to help provide fertility to the soil. So it fixes nitrogen in the soil, and we could cut it back and use the cuttings for mulch material to help feed the plants as well. And so it's basically a support plant. This is a really interesting fruit tree that grows further south, the che fruit, C-H-E, and it's growing well here. This is the male. You can see it's got some spines on it. It's got some lush growth, and is doing really great. But the female, which has been setting fruit, we can come and look at it over here, has set fruit, but it just gets a little bit too cold to ripen the fruit. It's just not quite warm enough. And this one's got some curled leaves, so it looks like it's a little stressed from the dry conditions that we're having right now. So it would do well with a little bit of water. We could get some rain someday. And then another heart nut tree, which, look at that lush growth. Isn't that amazing? That tree's putting on 2-3 feet a year. It's amazing. It's really healthy and really happy here. So yeah, it's a great spot back here, and there's a lot of opportunity to try out different things and grow different kinds of food that are not so traditional, not so typical, so people can come and see what kinds of things they might grow in their own yards or land around them, and to increase the food in our landscape and increase what we have, and also increase the space for wildlife and feeding wildlife as well, pollinators, birds, all the different animals. Thanks for coming on the tour, and it's been great to show everybody around. Excited. If you want to get involved, get in touch with me and keep shopping at the co-op. We're happy to have so much excitement and this resurgence of energy to help bring back our little country grocery store.